Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear viewers, and welcome back to Women's View on Ahlulbayt TV. Now, if you were watching before the break, you would know our topic today is about life and death. Before the break, our guest told us her experience about experiencing the loss of her parents, both parents, and how she coped with that. And it gave us a very good insight about death and those who experience death. Inshallah, now we'll be continuing on this topic about life and death. As we said before the break, there are numerous hadith and Quranic ayat which talk about the concept of death, that every human being shall taste death. So we begin to ask ourselves, what is the concept of death? What is the concept of life? When understanding both of these, then we can enhance our life and better ourselves, inshallah, to have a better hereafter. So before the break I didn't mention, but this is a live call-in show that the phone lines are now working. So if anyone has any comments, any views, anything they would like to share with our audience today, then please do call in with the number on the screen. The number should be on the screen. So if you have anything to say, then please do give us a call during the show. Otherwise, you can email us at womensview@ahlulbayt.tv. That's womensview@ahlulbayt.tv, or you can tweet us or send any messages or comments on Facebook. Inshallah, we'll be checking them out during today's show. So as I said, today's topic is about life and death. I'm your host, Zahra Al-Alawi, and today with me is Sister Nargis. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
Welcome back. We have some comments posted on our Facebook page and some emails coming in as well, so I would just like to read some of them out.
Sure.
Today, when that show was advertised, a sister called Sister Sayyida Fawzia, she says, why do we sin when we all know we are leaving this world? So if many of us know that death is a reality, then why do many of them sin on this earth?
I think it's how I can describe it is, regardless of whether you've actually experienced death or not, even for the people who've lost somebody very close, I think it hits home for a few hours, for a few days, for a few weeks, when people start thinking, my life has changed, how am I going to do this, how am I going to do that? And then for most people, they go back to the normal way of life. Very similar to if our loved ones lost us, if they did. But it hit home for a little while.
Then it goes.
Then it goes on. It doesn't fundamentally affect their physical being. It's not gonna. It'll affect them psychologically, mentally. It'll affect them. But life doesn't just stop for them just because somebody else's life has stopped. I think in the same way. It's a natural reaction. It's a natural reaction, not that you start sinning if somebody's passed away, that if you have been all your life, or if you've followed a certain course of action all your life, that's not suddenly gonna change unless you actually understand the concept, which is your existence. You cannot fully appreciate the end until you've understood the concept of life, the actual creation. And the two it's very twofold. You can't understand death if you don't understand life, and you can't understand life if you haven't understood death. People sin, there's many reasons, and obviously no thanks to Shaitan as well, who's there, he's constantly there, who has his influences. But I think the nafs is affected. The strength of the nafs, if it's weak, people will sin. The only way you are able to strengthen that nafs, if your devotion is sincere to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you are, hence that is the reason why Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that the intelligent man is he who remembers death on a daily basis. We have to remember death on a daily basis. We have to see. We should not just remember it when somebody's passed away and think, okay, now's the best time, let's write a will because this could happen to us. On a daily basis, that is the only way we will be kept away from sin. from sin, bad morals, and it will actually motivate us and encourage us to do good, because imagine we knew this was our last day. I think it's very important for us, for everybody, to live their life as if this was our last day, you know, and that doesn't mean you start rushing towards, you know, sorting your finances out and everything, which should already, and Prophet says, he encourages that we should hold, if we have any asset to leave behind, we should leave a will, especially with all the controversies which followed after the Prophet's death and in relation to his will as well. It's very important for us to live life as if this was our last day, because it's a guarantee that our demeanor towards our fellow Muslims will change. Our demeanor even during Salah will change. If we were stood on the prayer mat praying, if we knew that this was our last Salah, imagine how long that sujood would be.
Yeah.
Imagine the khushu that would appear, the concentration would appear, the devotion would appear. We wouldn't be thinking, okay, I've got to prepare food, I've got to do this when I come off, because you might not be coming off from the prayer mat.
Exactly.
It will change, it will actually change everything. The way we see life, the way we see our fellow siblings. Would we still have issues? Would we still know that we've usurped somebody's right? Would we not ask for forgiveness from other people who we think we've hurt, intentionally or unintentionally, knowing that after this world we are going to actually be standing before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asking for His forgiveness? With what face are we going to be asking for His forgiveness when we haven't forgiven our fellow human beings for something completely materialistic in this world? I think it puts a lot of things into perspective, and that actually does help us in avoiding and committing sin, remembering death on a daily basis, and not remembering death in a scientific, factual way that, yes, it's going to happen soon, but actually remembering, and it follows on through to what will happen. It's not the end of life, but the beginning of the barzakh, which actually, I mean, if that doesn't motivate you to refrain you from sinning, then I'm not sure what will. But death is what? Death is just the detachment of the soul from the body, where the soul no longer has the power to control the body. The soul still exists.
Exactly.
It's the attachment between the soul and the body. So the body's died, fair enough. But the torment the soul will go through, and it follows on that the barzakh is living, would be the wrong word to use, but it's pretty alive for the souls. You know, that's where everything starts. Whatever you've planted in this life, it will pay off or not be the case in the barzakh life. And it's very important for us to remember this on a daily basis. And I have no doubt that it will actually improve our morality and akhlaq with our children, with our brothers and sisters, with our colleagues. And Prophet ﷺ also narrates that the true believer is he who remembers the fear of Allah on a daily basis, has that fear in the heart, but also constantly has the smile on his face, because you can't let that fear and fear of the heart affect your relationship with other fellow colleagues, because there has to be a balance which is kept. But it's very important, and it's a very good question, or a very good comment that Sister posted. But I think it's very important for us to remember death on a daily basis.
Yeah. I agree with you. Many people, when they hear of the death of a close one or a close relative, it brings about some sort of reform within their life, but within the long run, it begins to fade. And like Imam Ali says within his sermons, he always says that, you know, the world is deceiving, and there's many people that are attached, you know, we're all attached to this life,
Yes.
all of us, every single one of us is attached to this life, that sometimes we get deceived by this world, that we go astray, but sometimes the concept of death brings about the reality.
Yes, and again, it's something I've just, that is the exact reason why we do remember the death of Imam Hussein al-Islam.
Yeah.
Because
Exactly.
had it not been remembered over the centuries, then that effect, the reasoning, would have faded away, and it would have been again, you know, another world where, yeah, the Islam exists, so to speak, Islam, which existed back in Yazid's palace. Islam exists, but not the real fundamental Islam, which is why these sacrifices were made and why they were as important as they were, and that is why that on a yearly basis the lovers of the Ahlulbayt remember this, because they don't want this to fade away.
Yeah, exactly. It's there's another point that you mentioned about the physical body deteriorating, but the soul remaining, and there's a you know, there's always people that question what's life, what's death, what's going to happen after death. And I remember having discussions with non-Muslims where we always talk about the concept of death, and we touched upon this, that many people, like even now, some philosophers and scientists always try to prove that there is nothing after death, that it's just this life. So what's the importance of remembering or believing that there is a creator, there is something after death, that, you know, we spend so much time looking after our physical being, and that many people neglect their spiritual being, when it's the spirit that's going to continue, not our physical bodies. So what's the importance of actually remembering that it's actually our spirits that will continue, not our physical being, and the importance of remembering that there is a creator and there is more than what we see and what we see?
I think just recently, alhamdulillah, I've had the blessings of being to Mecca and going to Hajj.
Yeah.
Now, the spiritual enlightenment, and when I say spiritual, it's not because it's not your body which is achieving anything there. You actually do feel in the presence, in Medina, in the Prophet's mosque, in Mecca, your spirit feels lifted. You actually feel that something has come alive. Because many great feasts of this world can physically satisfy your stomach, your body. It's there, it's doable. But when there's a gap, when there's something missing in this world, and you're not sure, you've got health, you've got wealth, you've got everything, and if you are not practicing Islam the way the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Holy Book says we're supposed to do, there will be something, there will be a gap, which will be there, because your spirit is hungry for that satisfaction. Your spirit is not, you know, fulfilled, and you only get that fulfillment in the remembrance of Allah. And the more you remember Allah, the more you strive for achieving His love, for being close to Him, for the affinity. It's like when you start some kind of a physical activity, going to the gym, etc. And you physically, your body. If you haven't been doing, if you do it on a regular basis and you miss a gap, your muscles ache, your body aches, because it's asking you to actually go back into that the same kind of regular activity. In the same way, if you miss out anything in your daily lives, the same way if we've, for astaghfirullah, for some reason, if our prayers missed, or our morning prayers missed, or anything happens, it affects our mood, it affects our nafs, because we know that would have been complete. There's something which is not there, and everything that we do on a daily basis should reflect back to the creation, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, every single thing that we do. And I think it's very important for us to realize that regardless of this, how we exist in this life and the materialistic side of things or the livelihood side of things, etc., etc. Every action that we do, every decision that we make, we should go back and think, would Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be happy with this? Would I actually achieve closeness to Him? If there's a doubt in our mind, then obviously there's something we're doing wrong. There should be no doubt. Everything, whether it's something which might not be immediately apparent that is positive to our well-being, but it isn't, is that? There's always a contradiction. It doesn't necessarily mean that because we're achieving the closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's necessarily going to be something which is going to have a positive impact. Because when we do go on the prayer mat and when we ask, I mean, there's two ways of dealing with it. First, people, they ask, I want X, Y, Z, or can this happen, that happen? But when we've actually submitted to Allah's will, right, do we not say, and should we not say, that Allah do what's best for us? Do whatever is best for us. And if it is best for us that we are going to lose that particular job because there's something which maybe that's not making us practice our deen in the way that Allah wants us to, maybe because there's something better out there for us, we shouldn't then see that as some kind of fatal loss. Because if we have submitted to the will of Lord, then we accept everything that comes from Him, but that only comes from complete sincerity when we are actually doing our actions for Him. And that is exactly the way the Ahlulbayt programmed their lives, the way they were, because nothing compares to the sincerity they had, their submission. And that's why they knew that regardless of whatever deaths and sacrifices that were going to happen, they were going to happen for the sake of Allah, to achieve closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's very important for us not to actually question the direction Allah is sending us by, if we are then going through the path, if we've chosen a path, and there are stepping stones towards that path, then we have to appreciate every single direction, whether that has a positive impact on our life or a negative one. We have to be completely submissive, because even though we might not get 100% of our desires fulfilled in this life, but in the hereafter, the sacrifices we've made and the submission that we've shown will definitely be scaled up on the Day of Judgment. So it's very important for us to realize it's not about this world. You know, one of the narrations say that we should work in this life as if we're here forever, but we should live our day as if we are dying today or dying tomorrow. So there's a balance in both of the worlds. So you can't give up one for the other. And may Allah guide all of us to be able to achieve that balance, you know, to be able to achieve that balance where we are able to live in this polluted world without compromising our hereafter, because ultimately it's the hereafter which is going to be accounted for. It's not, in the hereafter there is no death. So whatever losses we go through in this life, we won't be going through the same pains of losing our loved ones and losing the people we want to be with, because the hereafter will be, inshallah, the heaven will be the heaven we desire on this earth. Inshallah. So we give up, we make some sacrifices, inshallah, in this world to have it forever in the hereafter. Inshallah. Inshallah.
We are getting some comments posted, so let me just read some of them out. Just to remind the audience that this is a live call-in show, so if you would like to call in with any views or opinions, then please do call in with the number on the screen, or you can email us any emails or comments you may have. We are getting some comments. Sister just posted on Facebook, on my Facebook, she said, I'm just watching your show. I wish the best for Sister Nargis. She has been through a lot. Losing parents is one of the toughest tests from Allah, but Allah always tests the true mu'mineen. So it's from a sister. We have another email as well sent in. It says, Assalamu alaikum. This is such an excellent show. I think we should talk more about death and life because it makes us all better beings. Listening to Sister Nargis's experiences has really brought tears to my eyes. Very touching. I remember not long ago, a few years ago, in the community, a mother lost her teenage daughter. A mother should never have to go through burying her own daughter or children. This brought shock to the community. Everyone was in shock and tears, and it made many people change their lives and think about death, knowing that they will leave this life soon. But soon after, everyone returns back to their own ways. How can you keep that feeling alive, to try to reform ourselves and to try to continue to improve upon our lives? Many people don't think about death on a regular basis, so we live our lives as we wish. Any advice you would give? Thank you very much.
I think apart from remembering, they have to. It's something you've got to change in your lifestyle. I don't think it's difficult. I don't think it's difficult to remember death on a daily basis, because by remembering Allah in your salah, you are remembering death.
Yeah.
The whole good deeds, by praying 5 times a day, you are remembering death, because ultimately you've been created to do that, because there's a conclusion. It's going to end somewhere.
Yeah.
You can't ignore the final responsibility by ignoring remembering death. I think for some people it's ignorance, and for some it's a chapter although they may be fantastic good Muslims, but it's a chapter they rather not think about. Okay, if it happens, inshallah, blah blah blah. I think it's very important to actually face death, because knowing that it's a guarantee, and nothing in this life is a guarantee.
Yeah.
Nothing in this life is a guarantee. So when you know there is something which is guaranteed, we will actually die. When you actually think about it and dwell on this aspect, there's times people become defensive, and they rather not, because it means that you have to become more responsible.
Yeah.
And they're running away from that responsibility, because when you have to think about it, then you've got to think about your children, your siblings, your parents, your work, etc., etc. And you rather close that chapter, put a blind eye to it, and think if it happens when it happens. But I would say is remember the times your family or your friends, when you've lost somebody, you don't get notice. It doesn't happen with notice. When there's been a lifelong illness, then it's inevitable, it will be happening. Or when the doctors have said person has got cancer, etc., got 6 months to live, then okay, they've got some kind of planning to do in that period. But not everyone gets that. I mean, both my parents died, and it was sudden. It was absolutely sudden. When my father passed away, he was at a wedding, and that's the reason he was abroad, his nephew's wedding. And he had actually rang through and said, I will be flying out 3 days after the wedding. And he'd been there for some time, and everybody was looking forward to seeing him. When he was coming back, his birthday was going to be happening. My siblings had bought his birthday presents. And imagine looking at all that when that person is not actually there to get any of that. And regardless of there being a wife, 6 children, at the time that his soul was taken, none of those members were next to him, because they were in a different country on the other side of the river. You don't know when it's going to happen, in which circumstances it's going to happen, where it's going to happen. You just don't know that. Nobody. You might think, yeah, I've got family around me. Nobody might be there. Nobody might see you. I mean, we hear about that. It's more in the Western culture. But when parents or relatives have gone old and they're living on their own, you see on the news their body's been found only because the smell of the body went to the neighbours, etc., etc. You don't know when it's going to happen. Absolutely not.
Definitely.
So I think it's very irresponsible of us if we ignore the fact that it could be us next, and it could be us today. organize everything that needs to be organized, but actually use that to better yourself, because if on that day, on the day of judgment, if the scale is not in your favor, this might be your last chance to actually make a difference.
Exactly.
So be happy, change the way you speak to everybody, use good morals. If this was your last conversation, then how would you be speaking to your colleague?
Inshallah. We'll come after the break, inshallah, to discuss more of that. I think there's some very powerful advice there and very good advice given to our viewers. We are going off for a quick break, inshallah. After the break, we'll be speaking more about life and death. As I said, today's topic is life and death. This is a live call-in show, so if you have any comments, then inshallah send them through and we'll be reading them out after the break. So join us in a few minutes for the last half an hour of today's show. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.